नमस्कार के साथ में मैं फिर जब आपके साथ जुड़ रहा हूँ तो मेरा सौभाग्य है कि अभी मनाली में विराजमान है अपने पूर्वाश्रम में जो वाइस चीफ ऑफ इंडियन आर्मी रहे हैं, अति विशिष्ट विशिष्ट सेवा मेडल, परम विशिष्ट सेवा मेडल से अलंकृत। तो वो एक उनका जो जीवन पराक्रम से भरा रहा, उसके बाद में जो एक आध्यात्मिक संपदा के प्रति जागरूकता को लेकर जो उनकी साधना है, अ, उस सब को हम थोड़ा थोड़ा जानने का जब प्रयास करेंगे तो सबसे पहले तो मैं आदरणीय लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल भूपेंद्र सिंह ठाकुर साहब का स्वागत कर रहा हूँ। प्रणाम है आपको, नमस्कार। तो ये जो सौभाग्य मेरा है, इसके पीछे कृपा जो संबित मास्टर हमारे स्वामी श्री ईश्वरानंद गिरी जी महाराज की है। उनके बारे में आपसे जब मैं चर्चा कर रहा था पहले, उसी क्रम को जब हम आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं तो थोड़ा सा फिर लौटते हैं और कोई ऐसे संदर्भ जब वो आपकी जहाँ पोस्टिंग रही थी वहाँ आए हों, और कभी कभी उनके छोटे छोटे जो रिमार्क्स होते थे, जैसे जब न्यूयॉर्क आए थे तो हम गाड़ी में जा रहे थे तो सनलाइट जैसे थी, तो मैंने उनका जो आंख पर लाइट कम हो इस हिसाब से थोड़ा एडजस्ट कर रहा था। तो मैंने कहा कि सूरज अब ठीक है, तो वो हंसकर बोले कि सूरज हमेशा ठीक होता है, हम ही गलत हो जाते हैं। तो ऐसे छोटे छोटे रिमार्क्स, तो उस तरफ चलते हैं। और आपकी पोस्टिंग बहुत सारी जगह रही, आपको विशेष प्रिय कौन सी पोस्टिंग, कौन सा स्थान उस दृष्टि से लगा?
ये तो you see, difficult question to answer because for that rank, for that many years of service, I think all the postings that I got, whether they were in peace area or field area, they were all challenging and nice. So there is nothing that I have a favorite posting place per se. But irrespective of the fact where I was posted, it was Swamiji's kripa that he came to me at each and every place. So I was able to benefit out of his company and guidance that he could provide.
तो अंकल, एक डर जो हम सबके जीवन में रहता है वो मृत्यु का भय है। कोई भी मरना नहीं चाहता है। एक तो मृत्यु का भय है जो सबके लिए है, लेकिन एक जो ऐसी स्थितियां हो जाएं जिसमें कि मार दिए जाएं, वो भय अलग है। इन दोनों भय को आपने समझा है, जाना है। इसके बारे में एक साधक के रूप में आप क्या कह सकते हैं?
मृत्यु का भय वो चाहे नेचुरल डेथ के तौर पर आए और whether it be in the form of an accident और कोई आपदा की वजह से, भय तो भय होता है। मृत्यु का भय इज भय। नाउ बाय एंड लार्ज ये भय सबको लगता है। इसका जो मेन कारण है वो भगवान ने गीता के अंदर बहुत ब्यूटीफुली कवर किया हुआ है, जब वो मेंशन करते हैं कि जिन स्वजनों के प्रति, अर्जुन को बता रहे हैं, जिन स्वजनों के प्रति तू यहाँ पर शोक कर रहा है वो तो ऑलरेडी मेरे द्वारा मारे गए हैं। सो इन द सेंस कि जो इस विचार में रहते हैं कि मैं देह ही हूँ और मेरे मृत्यु के बाद मेरा देह मुझसे छूट जाएगा, उनको मौत का भय लगता है, उनको मृत्यु का भय लगता है। लेकिन अगर आप अपने स्वरूप को जान जाएं कि मैं तो सच्चित आनंद रूप हूँ, मैं ये जो पंच महाभूत का बना हुआ शरीर ये नहीं हूँ, इसी तरह से अंतःकरण नहीं हूँ, सूक्ष्म शरीर नहीं हूँ, तो उससे जैसे जैसे आप ज्ञान मार्ग में, ज्ञान के पथ पर आगे बढ़ते हैं और आपको अनुभूतियां होती हैं कि मेरा स्वरूप क्या है, तो उससे आपका भय मिट जाता है। मिटता ना भी हो तो कम से कम उस आपको समझ आ जाती है कि जिसका हम बात कर रहे हैं वो हम जो जिस तत्व की हम बात कर रहे हैं वो तो कभी मरने वाला है नहीं, वो तो अमर है। जिसकी मृत्यु होगी वो तो एक पंच भौतिक शरीर है, उसकी मृत्यु तो आवश्यक है, क्योंकि जिसका जन्म हुआ है उसकी मृत्यु तो निश्चित है, वो तो होगी। तो इस तरह से विचार करने से, विवेक करने से मृत्यु का हम भय दूर कर सकते हैं।
इसमें अब बात ये आती है कि इंटेलेक्चुअली ये बात समझ में आ जाती है कि मैं देह नहीं हूँ, लेकिन जो हमारी आसक्ति है संबंधों में वो, और जो दूसरे स्तर पर भय जैसा एक बना रहेगा कि ये देह छूट जाएगी उसका, क्योंकि उसके साथ में ये जो कुछ इसके, अगर अभी आपके साथ यूं कहूँ कि ये जो खेल चल रहा है जिसमें हमारी एक भूमिका है, उस भूमिका के साथ भी हम अपनी पहचान को देखते हैं। तो आपने जैसे कहा ये वाली आश्वस्ति बड़े अभ्यास के बाद आती होगी। इसमें गुरु की सन्निधि से निश्चित रूप से जो स्पष्टता है उसको पकड़े रखने में सहायता मिली होगी। आप अपने अंदर ये परिवर्तन निश्चित रूप से देखते होंगे। पहले आप जैसे अभी आप जिस तरह स्पष्टता से कह रहे हैं, जो कि मैं इंटेलेक्चुअली ग्रैस्प कर सकता हूँ, पर मुझे लगता है कि मैं हाँ भी कह दूंगा तो मतलब कहीं ना कहीं मेरे अंदर वो दूसरा भाव भी जागृत रहेगा।
आप जो बात कर रहे हैं वो ठीक कह रहे हैं, बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि अगर आप एक अध्यात्म मार्ग पर अगर आप अपनी साधना शुरू कर रहे हैं तो आप श्रद्धालु के तौर पर शुरू कर रहे हैं। आपकी श्रद्धा आपके गुरु के ऊपर है, आपके शास्त्रों के ऊपर है, आपके भगवान के ऊपर है। तो उस हालत में आप एक भक्ति के तौर पर आप अपनी श्रद्धा को गुरु के प्रति उसको एक्सप्रेस करते हुए गुरु से आप जितना गुरु आपको दीक्षा के तौर पर ग्रहण करवाते हैं उसको ग्रहण करना चाहते हैं। ये जो मैं आपको स्थिति बता रहा हूं, ये एक जिज्ञासु की, मुमुक्षु की और तकरीबन ऑलमोस्ट ज्ञानी टू भी की स्थिति है। मतलब जिसको कि जो वेदों का जो रहस्य है, जिसको समझ आना शुरू हो गया है, उसकी स्थिति है। शुरू में यह स्थिति सबके लिए लाना पॉसिबल नहीं है। तो इसलिए आपको स्टार्ट तो एज अ बिलीवर यू हैव टू स्टार्ट। Whatever Guru tells you, you have to start. And if you start off as a bhakti and then upasana and then combine with yoga, then you go on to the Gyan Marga. So then you start understanding it slowly. It's not an exercise which can be fulfilled in a number of days or months or years or maybe in some cases in life. You may have to, be on this path for many lives, as the Lord says in the Gita itself. But once you are on it, then you rest assured that Guru Kripa and भगवान जो आश्वासन देते हैं गीता के अंदर कि मैं अपने भक्त को भ्रष्ट होने नहीं देता, you'll pick up from where you left in your next janma. So that is the kind of belief you have to believe in. And once you are imbued with that belief, then you have that shraddha in Bhagwan ki yes, I will start off where I left. So that is how it's not easy to understand. I agree with you. It's not, and it's not purely an intellectual exercise. It's not purely as an intellectual exercise. You have to. It comes with a lot of sadhana and Guru Kripa. So it is a combination of both.
तो थोड़ी साधना के बारे में भी और स्पष्टता आपके साथ हमें मिलेगी, ऐसी आशा को साथ में रखते हुए। जो आपने कहा कि कई जन्म भी लग सकते हैं, तो कई बार ऐसा होता है कि कुछ साधक हैं जिनमें एक सहज जिज्ञासा है, उनको रस आता है इस तरह की बात। और जो आपने ये शब्द किया मुमुक्षुत्व, यानी मोक्ष की आकांक्षा जिनके अंदर तीव्र है, वो तो ये मुमुक्षुत्व जो है वो भी पिछले जन्म के जो कुछ संस्कार रहे उसके साथ जुड़ा रहता होगा थोड़ा बहुत एक। लेकिन सवाल ये है कि इसको बढ़ाने के लिए क्या है जो सहायक हो सकता है?
आ, आ, गीता में भगवान कहते हैं कि मनुष्य जन्म दुर्लभ है, और वो उसके रीजंस देते हैं कि मनुष्य जन्म क्यों दुर्लभ है। मनुष्य जन्म पाकर भी एक गुरु की प्राप्ति उससे भी दुर्लभ है, और उसके बाद आपके हृदय में मुमुक्षा की जो उत्पत्ति होती है उसका आना वो भी दुर्लभ है। अब आप कहेंगे कि ये क्यों दुर्लभ है और ये कैसे इसको हासिल किया जा सकता है। सो दिस इज अ सम टोटल ऑफ ऑल योर संस्कारास। आपके जितने संस्कार हैं जिनको कि पैदा लेकर आप जो आपने एकत्रित किए हुए हैं, जो आपने संचित किए हुए हैं, इन एडिशन जो आपके प्रारब्ध हैं इस जन्म के लिए, उसके मुताबिक अगर आप उस पुराने संस्कारों की आधार के ऊपर प्रारब्ध को एक्सेप्ट करते हुए, बिकॉज प्रारब्ध तो आपको सुख और दुख ही लाएंगे, उसके अलावा तो और कुछ नहीं होता प्रारब्ध का काम। उसके बाद अगर आप इस मार्ग पर गुरु कृपा से पड़ जाते हैं तो उसके बाद फिर आप साधना में उनके आदेशों के अनुसार देन आप जुड़ जाते हैं। तो दिस इज अ प्रोसेस ऑफ द साधना. So this has to continue, and depending upon at what stage you are, you may be liberated, because वेदांत का जो उद्घोष है वो ये है कि आपको मृत्यु के बाद आपको मोक्ष प्राप्त करने का इंतजार नहीं करता, वो तो जीवन मुक्ति देता है, now and here and now. That is the udghosh of the Vedanta. But that depends at what level the Jigyasu or the Mumukshu is. If he has reached that level, then yes, it will be possible. If he has not, then it is there, his punji in the fixed deposit, which he'll inherit in his next janma. And he'll start off from there. So that journey continues.
तो जर्नी कंटिन्यू जो है वो साधना की जब बनी हुई है तो उसमें जो संगत है उसका बड़ा महत्व रहता है कि आप किस तरह के वातावरण में अपने आप को रखते हैं, अपने मन को रखते हैं। इस दिशा में स्वामी जी का संवित साधना में कहीं ना कहीं ऐसा संकेत मेरी समझ में रहा कि हर साधक अपनी साधना को अपने स्वभाव के हिसाब से डिज़ाइन कर रहे, एक ढर्रे में साधना नहीं हो। मेरे शब्द कुछ अलग होंगे मगर कुछ ऐसा था कि एक जो यूनिक टच है हर जीव का कह दें या साधक का कह दें, तो उसके हिसाब से उसकी साधना में थोड़ा बहुत विशिष्टता होगी, एक प्रामाणिक आधार को लेते हुए। आप मुझसे इस पे सहमत हैं?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। You see, because everybody cannot be at the same start point, because everybody's capabilities, his sanskaras, his level varies. It is something like that somebody has studied only up to matriculation, somebody has studied up to graduation, and somebody has done his post-graduation. So you cannot combine all these three and then bring them to the same level, depending upon the level. And that is where the Guru Sannidhi is so important, because then Guru will accordingly advise you to start off, and the manner in which you have to start off depending upon your level. So Guru understands your level. So that is why, we talked about Samved, and I was able to, I was just browsing through, I came across these three definitions of Samved, which have been given by Swamiji. And then at the end of it, I'll also give you the definition as given by Bhashyakar. So as far as Swamiji's definitions are concerned, you will be able to relate it to the sadhaka's qualification per se. A sadhaka who's a beginner, sadhaka who's a shraddhalu, sadhaka who's a bhakt, sadhaka who's an upasak. So you'll be able to correlate it. So the first definition, which has been given by Swamiji, is to the sadhaka who is committed to the path of action. So I suppose he is addressing the karma yogis. Okay.
I,
To the sadhakas who is committed to the path of action prescribed in scriptures, samvit is an ascending staircase of precious gems leading to the supreme fruitfulness of life. So, what he has said is, he has said that you will be climbing that ascending staircase, ultimately reaching the supreme fruitfulness of life. So, this is one definition. The second one, now he's upgrading it to the level of the intellectual. He says, to the intellectual seeking to discover the spiritual wealth hidden in the scriptures, samvit is the magical, unguent collyrium bestowing divine sight. Now, let me explain what is unguent collyrium. It is the anjan that we put in the eyes. So that means that anjan, when you put in the eyes, then you will get that divine sight. Now, that is the state of an intellectual. And now listen to the third one. To the mystic who thirsts for the bliss of a communion with God. Now, he is addressing the jigyasu. To the mystic who thirsts for the bliss of communion with God, samvit is the graceful divine guru. May that all-pervading light of samvit be revealed in our heart. So, you see, he has so beautifully described it at three levels to fit in with the level of the disciple. So, depending upon which start point you are at, you can start off from there. And you see, it is always, you'll keep upgrading yourself. That is what samvit means. That in case you are starting off on some particular way of sadhana, ultimately you must be able to realize that samvit. That is the ultimate. So when Swamiji says, or he chose that logo for our ashrama, Tanmayo Bhavet. So he is saying that you have to be ready to pierce that lakshya. And that lakshya is the Brahma. And you have to have that arrow. And then you have to have that pratyancha, and you should be able to pull that pratyancha so far back as not only to touch that lakshya, but pierce it beyond. So now I'll give you that the definition as given by Shankaracharya, Bhagwan Bhashyakara.
if I may interrupt for a second, just to connect with your own perception or the way you related to these three definitions. I think the first definition is while you were in service, and the third one is
Yes.
where you are right now.
Yes. No. Third one, yes, I can say, because I consider, I have always said that I am at the moment at the stage of a jigyasu. Okay. So my stage, if you particularly ask my particular example, I'm a jigyasu. I like to find out as to what the truth is. I would like to know who am I. So that is the jigyasa.
Staying here before going to Acharya Shankara's definition or his words on Samvit, in Swamiji's presence, everything was practiced with complete devotion. When I say everything, if there is a discussion of Vedanta where, let me make it simple for me to convey. So it is, if Uddhav ji goes and shares the real true form of Lord Krishna to gopis, then gopis have their own version or the way they relate to Krishna. So with Swamiji, Uddhav ji would also be at ease, and Gopi ji would also be at ease. So share your sort of feelings on this, and also while you were in service, or most of the people, they don't observe our traditional way of worshipping and offering to please the Lord, which is upasana. So many people who are intellectually inclined, they don't find themselves uh, taking that much interest or finding themselves in alignment with the upasana paddhati in the beginning. But maybe so on this, what has been your observation, your thoughts?
You see, it happens. Now, most of us, and I started off from that initial line. I mean, I was not what they call a parachutist who was dropped at the third or the fourth start point. Okay, I start off at the initial point. Now, I'll give you the example as defined in Gita. Now, in Gita, four type of bhakt they are defined. All of us, they fall in the same category. You start off as Arth, you go up to Arthi, then you graduate on to Jigyasu, and then you only go up to the fourth level of Jnani. We all have aspirations. We all believe, and why not? In case we want something in life, we ask our parents, and absolutely without any hesitation or without any shame. So, in case we don't hesitate in asking our parents for anything, why should we hesitate in asking God? So, therefore, we all start as Arti, and we all graduated to Arthi. Yes, we need Arth. You may translate it in the form of money, but it includes everything that provides you the comforts of life. So we all have artha, and then we, in case you have been satisfied with the first two states, and then you have been continuously understanding what sadhana is as given to you by your guru, then you will graduate on to jigyasu level. But I am not including those who have come back with that who have started off with the third starting point because of their sanskaras which they inherited from the previous janma. He may be in the nivritti mark itself, but all of us who like common men have started, and that is where it is easy to understand that we can start in believing God as the sakar rupa in the upasya form, and then graduate slowly, because one of the prerequisites of treading this mark is, and there are four this thing which is given in Vedanta, that is, you should have viveka, you should have vairagya, you should have shat sampati, and then you should have mumuksha. Now, in Shat Sampati, when you talk, there are, that qualities like Sham, Dam, Titiksha, Uparati, and then they talk about Shraddha and Samadhan. So, in case you do not have Shraddha, that means there is something which is lacking, because it's only a Shraddhalu who will follow the Lord's path and the Guru's path. It's only that Shraddhalu who will who will tread that path. So that is something which you must have within you. In case you don't, then maybe it is not the right time. You're still, in a stage previous to it. You have a lot to catch up. So, whereas in case you have that Shraddha, and Shraddha basically means that you believe in what the Shastras say and what the Guru says. So, these two, whatever they tell you, you don't challenge the Shastras, you don't challenge your Guru. So, in case you start off there, then of course you'll be able to tread this path, and you'll be able to graduate from one form of bhakti to another, eventually landing up at Jigyasa. From Jigyasu to Jnani, I told you, it may take many, many lives.
So, staying here, there are two sides which are sort of obstacles for sadhaka or any human being in on his path of growth. One is ego, that is a sense of I and considering oneself superior to what is being told, even by guru or by shastra. So we pretend that we are receiving with total respect, but internally we are not accepting what is being conveyed because of ego. That is one. Secondly, there is pramada, or so the positive word for this would be there is need of tatparta, and I believe Swamiji was very much appreciative of the discipline which army life brings to you at some level, not in a regimented way, but so how to deal with ego is one question, and another is how to increase tatparta so that the shraddha is strengthened.
Oh, yes. Uh, Ego. Now, if you start off with these, there are total, I said, four main factors, starting off with Vivek and Vairagya, then going on to Shat Sampati. And Shat Sampati, as the name suggests, there are six factors, and then Mumuksha, so total become nine. Now, if you go through all these factors one by one, then you'll get to know that you have to tackle all these aspects, and even ego. Ego is one of them, because ego is basically the false pride, which you have. You try and put on something which you are not. You try and display something which you are not. And that is something which is like a mukhota. You want to present it to the world. Now, in case you go through all these factors, now when you say that you have to start off with the Viveka and Vairagya, uske andar, when you say Vairagya of ego is one of them. Ego is indeed something which is not easy to overcome. But then you have to logically, yukti or logic say, you have to understand, and of course Guru Vachana will help you out. You have to understand that you have to be not concerned with ahamta or mamata. That is, ahanta means main and mamata means mera. So unless you are able to give up that main or mera,
You mentioned about main or mera, and
yes,
there is another dimension which we generally connect with main or mera. We feel that in order to discharge our duties, this main and mera plays an important role, because you think that this is my son, my wife, my XYZ, and these are my duties which I need to perform in order to take care of them. So that, on the one hand, is considered worthy for you to undertake. On the other hand, this may also act as a binding force. So, talk to us a little bit about balance between the two.
yes, you are right. You see, it is never the aim of Shastras is never to create a conflict in your life. Okay, Shastras have mentioned it very clearly. If you are not on the Nivritti Marg, and if you are following the Pravritti Marg, which all of us are, then Shastra says you follow as per the Varna Dharma and Ashram Dharma. Okay. Now, if you are continuing as per your Varna and Ashrama Dharma, and you have, that graduated from being student to a Grihast, then you have to follow and perform all your duties to the best of your ability, being a Grihast, whether that responsibility is that of a husband or father or whatever it is. You have to, and for that, for Vyavhara, you have to um, you have to fall back on this main and mera. But as you graduate from Grihast ashram to the next, upon Vanprasth ashram, then you have to realize that maybe you have finished most of your responsibilities which you had towards your wife and towards your children. Now, Vanprasth doesn't mean that you leave your family and then go away into the vana. Nobody is telling you that. But what it tells you is that at least mentally, you try and get away from what is called this sansara, that me and merapan. At least understand that. And finally, when you come to the stage of sannyasa ashram, then you have to follow it up. Because at that time, you have no other responsibility except to yourself. And if you fail to perform that responsibility, so then there is no this thing. And while you are in the Grihastha ashrama, and as I said, Shastra never creates a conflict, it is only complementary. You must understand that all these roles that you are performing, I call it role, that of a husband and of a father and that of a brother or a sister, whatever it is, you have to do it, and you have to understand that these are my upadhis. You know, I am basically a human being, but being a father, being a husband, being a brother, that is something which I have to perform as long as I am in that vyavhara sthiti. Now, when you graduate from the Vyavharik Satta onto Paramarthik, then you have to know that that is something which you have to leave behind. It's like your bachpana which you left behind long time ago. And yes, you perhaps sometimes think about it, and sometimes maybe sort of reminisces also about it. But then that is something which is gone. It is not going to come back again. Similarly is the state. You see, as they say, that as you grow from one state to another, you must live in the present moment. And when you talk about present, and not worry about the future either, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So when you live in the present moment, then you have to see as to which sthiti I am in. So in case you are in Vanprasthi, or you are going to going to be in sannyasa ashrama shortly, then you act accordingly. And our Shastras give very clearly what you are supposed to do and what you are not supposed to do.
परमहंसाय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्
You said it beautifully. मेरा व्यावहारिक सत्ता, पारमार्थिक सत्ता, taking care of one's duties as prescribed by Shastras also. Now, here is a tricky part for many people who get into the trap of this illusion. When you perform your duties, you also end up building some expectations in terms of the role that you have with respect to different relations, and that force of expectation also creates a lot of misery in our lives. How to deal with that?
Oh, now this is, this you have to, that is part of your sadhana. You see, what you are basically asking is what Lord Krishna brought out right in the very beginning of Gita, when he explained the karma. You see, karma everybody has to do. Even if you want, you cannot give up karma. So every karma has its phala. Now the problem is, when you say you have expectations, that means you are expecting something tit for tat. that, okay, I've done this and I expect this out of that. That means you are expecting some phala out of that karma. So in case you are expecting that karma phala, then you have to be expecting that you will be either earning for yourself punya in case it was a good karma, or papa in case it was a bad karma phala. So if you are into this cycle of earning or doing karma for the purposes of getting phala, then you have got yourself bound. This is called bandhan. So that means you are in this world, and then you have to seriously think that in case you want to give up this bandhan, how to go about it. And that is where the guru comes in.
So I'm kind of getting one more layer in this. There are some cause and effect relationships in the Vyavaharik role. Since you were in army, so you know that if you salute the way it goes, like it's mutually the same way. You have certain expectations in all relationships, even in family life. You expect
Yes,
people.
yes,
So then it it becomes very difficult to stay
yes.
balanced.
Yes, that is true. What you are saying is basically ego. That salutation that you say, I mean, as long as I am in service, I was in service, it was my right. Okay. So it was my right, and it is soldier's duty to salute, or my duty to salute my seniors. Okay. So that is something which is totally within the realm of what by law I'm supposed to do and not supposed to do. Okay. That is something else. But after retirement, in case I carry these expectations that I will continue to be like this and I must get this respect which was due to me while I was in service, that brings you a lot of problems. Lot of problems to you mentally, to yourself, because that means you are carrying the baggage which you are not able to drop. And that carriage is going to hurt you badly. Now, that is the carriage of the ego. So, unless you know that this is something which is bothering me, and unless you are guided by the Guru, and then Guru will tell you how to go about getting over all this. Now, that is where they say the word used in Vedanta is that in order to be adhikari, you have to be sadhan chatushtaya sampan. So in case I have not done all this, that means I am not an adhikari. I have yet to go about at least gaining my qualification to enter into Vedanta. So that is something which comes with your practice, with your sadhana. It's part of your sadhana.
We're talking about sadhana and talking about balance between the ancient and the modern in the context of the way new generation appreciates or questions, and there are many kids who feel that they don't really find themselves attracted towards religion. There is a form of religion that when we say that these are the practices, and they say this is a religion, and and they very openly say that I'm not religious, and they 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 don't say it with arrogance, yet there is something which is difficult to address exactly. So, two questions. One, would you care to define when we say actually religion नहीं धर्म की बात करें, हम हिंदू धर्म की बात करें, तो हिंदू धर्म को क्या हम परिभाषित कैसे करेंगे? दूसरा, जो यंग माइंड ऐसा फील करते हैं कि उनको इसमें रुचि नहीं है, तो what response you may have for them?
You see, I have always believed, and since I have my own children and I have my grandchildren, so I'm fairly sort of, updated with the thinking of the new generation. What you are saying is absolutely right. There is no doubt there are people who carry most of these impressions, rightly or wrongly, that's a different issue. The point is that all my children and my grandchildren, they have been born because of their previous sanskaras in this family or any family. I'm not saying my family, I'm saying any family. They come to any family because of the previous sanskaras that they have earned, okay? And then they learn the sanskaras from their parents. And having learned those, when you go into the society, whether you go into a school and then to college or whatever it be, and then you come under the influence of factors on which even the parents mostly have no control, fine, that is, I believe, it is a passing phase. I mean, that is my understanding. And there are people who want to experiment with it, so be it. Fine, let them experiment. But depending upon or how deep those sanskaras are, they will, at some stage or the other, they will come back to this path. And that is the beauty of this path, because these sanskaras are not skin deep. They are very, very deep inside us. And then, if nothing else, every Hindu, I believe, has Shraddha. If nothing else, even if he doesn't want to be seen doing namaskara to a mandir from a distance, I'm very sure in his own heart he says namaskar. Even if he doesn't want to show it to his friends that he said namaskar. So that is the beauty of Hindu. I don't think he can be an atheist. So if there are some atheists, so what? They have always been in our society. You see, if there were devas, there were asuras also. They will always be there, right from the Satyug, they were there. So if there's somebody, so that is their prarabdha. So that be it. There's nothing you can do.
And I agree with
But
you. Yeah. Go ahead.
But it is, as parents, it is, I'm sure, always the desire and the effort of the parents to try and put it across. But sometimes maybe the time of that thing has not come as yet. So they will come back to this path when the time is right. So be it.
Patience and acceptance, both, I think,
Yes.
for
Yes.
peace. And there is another side of life where we see some people act with conviction and courage, and some people are not as courageous. And if I may recollect, in your presence, it was your 70th birthday that Swamiji addressed, and he actually recollected one shloka from Mahabharata with 8 qualities, and I won't be able to reproduce that. Ashta gunaya purusham deepayanti, it was like that. But among those qualities, intellect was there, and good upbringing, indriya sayam, learning. Parakram was also one, which is ability or to overcome the opposition. Now, that while we are talking about the external world means something, and while we are talking about internal shatrus, it means something else. Parakram. Uh, what I'm saying, or what I'm trying to ask you is, we have a lot of inner enemies, and each individual will have different degree or strength ascribed to enemies like Kam, Krodh, Lobh, etc. Uh, so, how to develop that parakram with the help of Samvit sadhana? If you care to think about it.
Uh, I'm glad that you have identified yourself while asking the question itself. That parakrama, we are not alluding to the physical part of being brave or being courageous. we are more talking about is as an inner quality that is within yourself to, to follow what is right and to not follow what is not right, or to see, to examine within yourself what are the basic shortcomings you are suffering from and how to go about improving those. Now, this is something which uh, is not a short-term exercise. I think it's a very long-term exercise which requires your firstly realizing, accepting that you have certain shortcomings. Now, those shortcomings may be brought to you, by your near and dear ones, your wife, for example. She is, I think, the first person who knows you inside and out. And she is the one who can tell you. And I'm sure in most of the cases, in the case of the couples, the lady always brings out these aspects. And it is for you, whether to accept it or not. Similarly, it is your guru, it is your parents, and in some cases, it's your friends. Now, if you accept those and then you take action to get rid of them, that is Purushartha. But if you deny them, you go on to the denial mode, then you'll continue to suffer from them. And there are any number of methods given in the Shastras, and Guru will guide you that how to go about getting rid of most of your, all your vasanas, all your ashnas, how to get rid of them. So they tell you that, and one of the best method is that in case you are able to do upasana, because upasana is one thing which enhances your ekagrata, which enhances your surrender towards your upasya. Now, that is the kind of, in case you follow the sadhana which has been told to you by your guru, slowly, it's not an overnight effort that you'll be able to get over all these things. So, first stage is acceptance. And then, of course, once you have accepted it, then you go about as per the guidance of the guru. But I agree with you that they are the real hindrance. Unless you get rid of them, you'll not be able to make any progress.
And just recollecting from Swamiji's words, not verbatim, but referring to Ishavasya Upanishad, this was also at your 70th birthday, he mentioned that अपने आप को ठीक तरह से नहीं जानना, ठीक प्रयोग नहीं करना आत्महनन है, which is so in order for us to not get into the situation where we are killing ourselves in this sense of the term, what we need is, as Bhagavad Gita points out, Asang Shastra also is probably helpful. So anything that comes to your mind which might help us in refocusing internally and staying focused on our lakshya. So having that sustained call it memory, अब वो उसकी लक्ष्य की स्मृति बनी रहे, इसके लिए और अपने साथ छल करने से हम बचें, इसके लिए क्या आप सलाह देंगे?
I agree with your statement that Shraddha basically emanates from Satya. You see, because a person, you have accepted him as a guru, so Guru is not going to tell him anything. Guru is not going to tell anything to his Shashya which is not Satya. Similarly, our Shastras do not tell anything which is asatya. Because, for example, in case Shastra or Guru tells that, look, fire, it does not burn, and he keeps repeating it again and again, but that is not Satya. So Guru will never say that. Guru will never tell you that fire will not burn. So it has to be whatever Guru and Shastra tell you, they're based on Satya. There is no doubt about it. Now, as long as you have that Shraddha that whatever Guru tells me is based on Satya, then that is called Shraddha. Okay, and in case that there is an example which Bhashyakar also gives in at one of the places, that if you keep repeating something which is not correct, which is asatya, then it will never become satya. Just because it is a satya, repetition of the same thing by repeating it again and again that this is so and not so and so will not make it so and so. So therefore, Shraddha, basic platform of Shraddha is satya. There is no doubt about it. Now, as far as how to go about developing it, as I said, it basically starts off with that your own mental makeup, which I called Devi Sampati, which you have been born with. And then secondly is your sanskaras that you have either inherited from your parents or from your friends or from the society or from your teachers in school, wherever it is. So all this, because your sanskaras are every day of your life, you are building onto your sanskaras.
Thank you very much. So once again, when I recollect the Purvashram of General Thakur Sahab as Vice Chief of Army, he has moved beyond that phase of life, and upadhis like Ati Vishisht Seva Medal or Param Vishisht Seva Medal have their importance, yet they have found a place which is somewhere not in his active conscious zone. And as I thank you and conclude today's conversation, I would like to quote from Swamiji's book, 7 Days in Samvit, Peace for Monday. He writes, "Be always cool like the moon, whether you are waxing or waning, you are full and beautiful. Remember, beauty and bliss belong to your soul nature. Let it shine through your mind." And as I quote this, my question to you at the last one for this session relates to your own experience or realization of your fullness, the beauty within, or a kind of blissful state. So there are two questions from here. One, once you attain it or once you have a glimpse of it, does it remain continuously, or it is intensely experienced at certain point in some given setting? Or so your experience on this, please.
You see, as I said earlier, I call myself a jigyasu, and that's what all I am. And I have no claims whatsoever that I have had any anubhuti that a jnani has, or any anubhuti which Mahatmas have. So nothing of that sort. I have been fortunate enough to have been in the Sannidhi of the Guru. I have been very fortunate to have a very highly qualified Mahatmas as my Acharya of Vedanta. I have been very fortunate in having the time to myself in studying the Shastras, and then at least theoretically speaking, I know. Theoretically speaking, I know what are the steps I have to tread. But whatever experience one achieves along that path, that is something which I suppose is something which is a lifelong thing. And that is, in any case, I don't think it is achievable so easily. But the one is perseverance. And that is where I feel that I have a fairly strong perseverance quality in myself, and I will continue to follow this path, and hopefully, whenever God wishes, that because that is His anugraha. So I will wait for that day when God and the Guru Kripa will bestow these things on me. But that may not be in this life at all.
Your patience and your perseverance are commendable. I would also say your humility, and to mark Guru Purnima this year, uh, one, we are absorbed. When I say we, I'm just assuming that I also speak on your behalf. What I'm about to say is that we are blessed to have been in the close proximity as well as continuity of the guidance by uh, Samvit Master, or more, I would go towards the love side. So the palpable love of Swamiji is still a part of our lives. Now, on this Guru Purnima day, if informally you want to say something about Swamiji to sadhakas, or just meditate on him, and whatever comes, that would be your blessing for us also.
Only thing that I like to say is that remember Swamiji not as a person. Don't consider him, don't think that he was a Panchbhuta Sharir. Think of him as a great teacher, what he was trying to convey to you. I have always felt that Swamiji is that inner samvit which he wanted to convey. We as sadhakas have not been able to latch on to that samvit. So, in case we follow his teachings, what he was trying to teach us, that will be my prayer to all my fellow sadhakas, that please go to his teachings. Because somehow we have the habit of deifying a person, particularly a person like Swamiji who was loved so much. So I remember his telling me, I remember when he left Manali, and he told me categorically that please don't try and deify, that saying that this was my bedroom and therefore I must sort of enclose it and have it as a memory of this thing. So I always felt that he wanted to convey that please follow the teachings of what the Samvit gurus have been trying to convey from the ages, from the ages. So he was in the series of that parampara. And since we were so close to him, I think that will be the best Shraddhanjali that we can give him. That's all I can say to my fellow sadhakas.
I cannot thank you enough. Thank you very much for enlightening us. And the concluding reminder that we should not look at Guru as Vyakti, which Swami also mentioned many times कि गुरु कोई व्यक्ति नहीं है, और जब ईश्वर स्वयं को व्यक्त करना चाहते हैं तो गुरु के रूप में आते हैं, और गुरु यानी जो अंधकार को दूर करने वाले हैं, और ये जो प्रकाश है वो स्व का प्रकाश है, उस तक जोड़ने वाले संबित सेतु स्वामी जी का स्मरण आपके साथ करने का ये सौभाग्य मेरा भी उनके कृपा से हुआ। तो मैं आपको बहुत बहुत प्रणाम करते हुए और गुरु पूर्णिमा के अवसर पर सभी संबित साधकों को, बल्कि सब जनों को गुरु शक्ति से हम निर्देशित अनुशासित होते रहें और जीवन को कल्याणमय पथ पर आगे ले जाते हुए इसका जो समग्र आनंद है अपने जीवन लक्ष्य के प्रति एकाग्र रहते हुए आप प्राप्त करें। ऐसी प्रार्थना गुरु शक्ति के चरणों में विशेष करके वो जिस रूप में आए थे उस रूप का भी स्मरण करते हुए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
जय